Welcome back to our program in the VDMA Circular Economy Forum. The topic of today is shaping the future of circular economy. And with this regard, we are really interested to get to know what happened at K. And therefore, I'm really glad to have with me today Hans-Josef Endres from the Leibniz Leibniz University in Hanover. He is a real expert when it comes to plastics recycling and circular economy, and so we are really looking forward to your presentation now.
Thank you for the kind invitation. Yes, I'm really happy to talk about the K, about my personal impressions and maybe the highlights of the K. First of all, a very brief introduction of myself. I studied mechanical engineering and I'm joined the industry for 10 years, and then I moved over to the University of Applied Science and Fraunhofer, and I end up at the University of Hanover. One, maybe the most important key message for me is that there is a change in thinking about the future pathway of plastics. The plastic industry did a very successful job so far in the past, but for me, they recognized now that, or right now, that there is a rethinking of materials, of processes, of products really necessary. This change is not focused only on technical improvements. It's also a change in awareness. Instead of discussions if circular economy is the right way, we have all the days discussions how to make it happen and how to realize circular economy. There is no question about it. By this we move from different individual approaches to a global circular thinking. Let me say, there are a lot of partnerships and alliances on the way, like the Alliance to End Plastic or Material Suppliers, which is another example, which helped to set up waste collecting systems in Indonesia. It's just a few examples here, and that's what I think that's what we all heard all the day. What does this mean? Well, instead of, let me say, just or mainly economic-driven linear business models, we need sustainable pathways, and the first step is, for me, it's at the beginning of the cycle. It's designed for recycling, but also a design for recyclates. It's not enough just to think how we can improve the recyclability of products or material. It's also important to think how we can realize or establish or develop products which are able to increase a higher amount of recyclates. So the material and product design should also include the end of life and new life scenarios, and maybe the recyclability will also become a performance indicator or parameter. At the moment, the performance of a material is described by barrier properties, by mechanical properties, maybe by processing behavior, and I hope or I wish that in future we will also keep in mind or take into account the recyclability. And to be honest, okay, I'm involved in this issue, but every day I find myself in a situation where I started to think if this package is really necessary, Is it really needed? And if so, how could its recyclability improved? It's a workshop, or it should be a workshop. So here is the point where I want to ask you if you want to share your thoughts with me on these design approaches. How can we maybe improve the recyclability just by changing the design of products? What we learned so far, it's that we maybe have to reduce the combination of materials, that it's very hard to recycle multi-layers. Maybe it's better to use monomaterials, that it's maybe better to connect different materials in a way that we can separate them once again. So maybe glues are not the right way if they are not dissolvable once again, and so on. So do we have any new ideas, approaches? What should we do, or what can we do in the future?
So, if you like, you can join in and, of course, share your ideas with us. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm from Taiwan, and the company I work for, we are a machine manufacturer. Okay, we produce PET stretch blow molding machines. So we make plastic bottles like that. So in one of the examples, okay, that our customer actually approached us is instead of requiring the bottle requiring a label, okay, to identify company logos, they would simply ask us to design a mold so that the company logo is, during blow molding process, is molded as part of bottles. So in that case, then this eliminate the need for the label. So that approach has come from design.
Yeah.
So that during recycle, right? There's no need for sometimes the PE or PP, right? Is stick on the bottles and produce, it causes problems during recycling. So that's one example that's from the applications of design, from design approach to conform with a circular economy.
Yep.
That's what actual example from one of our customers. Okay.
I agree completely to what you said. It's reduce the materials, the processing steps. What we just need at the end is also identification or a system where we can identify these signals, let me say. But it's I think it's really, yeah, it's the right way to reduce or to remove the paper or the sleeves or something like that. Yeah, it's another nice example. Yes, thank you, and I'm sure if we start to think, and if you have maybe, I don't know if it is really a good advice, but that's what I do all the time. Maybe you are also catched, let me say, by this idea that in future, if there is a material or a package, that you automatically will start to think about how you can improve the sustainability, the recyclability of this product. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I will go ahead. With the next step, I think we also have a starting position, or we can improve the recyclability by the waste separation by the consumers. That means we must include the consumer in the discussion. So far, due to the increasing critical discussions, consumer got a very emotional thinking that is against plastics. So I would appreciate from my side if we can go from the general negative discussions on plastics to an honest discussion on bottlenecks, if there are some bottlenecks, of circular economy pathways. So that there is not a general discussion in total, that we maybe start to discuss how we can improve circular economy approaches. and not in general damn plastic. And in this context, my personal highlight, or one of my personal highlight, or maybe the highest highlight, was the visit of a school class here in the VDMA pavilion with pupils which are about 10 years maybe, and their questions showed really on a nice way on which level we as experts are on the way. So there was a question, for example, why we export our plastic waste to other countries. And to be honest, there is no good answer, and it's not right. And then the pupils ask, okay, if it is not right, why do not take it back? So it's I think it's really important. How can we improve the awareness and behavior of the consumers? And the answer depends really strongly from the region and from the education and so on. But it's in Europe the situation is completely different. Let me say to emerging countries where we have no waste logistics so far, but it's really necessary to address this issue to consumers. The next step is, if you have some ideas how we can introduce the consumers a little bit more in all the issues we are discussing here on the K. Let me know.
Feel free to contribute. Any ideas? So, okay, maybe later on.
Yeah. Okay, then I will go ahead. The next point is, for me, it's waste collection and waste logistic. However, we also need further improvements in waste treatment, improvement of established sorting technologies is definitely one point, but I also saw new technologies here at the K. For example, that we improved the machinery so that the machinery is able to, let me say, to sort different plastics, colors and shapes in one step, for example, or that digital watermarks, or what you mentioned before, just different ways to introduce, let me say, markers. Also, special marker technologies where we introduce markers to realize the marker-based sorting into the polymer. There are some companies like Polysecure or Gabriel Chemie on the way to do these things, and by this we can identify and separate special polymer grades in waste streams. Another example is that we developed ER neutral black colors, which allow, or which make it possible also to identify polymers even if they are black. Yes, so I think there are much more approaches to improve also the separation and the sorting quality, the efficiency of these processes. So if I forgot something, or if you saw some other things here on the K, please let us know. Okay, otherwise, if I have to give a lecture, I always tell the student, if you have no question, then I just will speed up. That means at the end, if there is an examination, it's more you have to prepare. So if there are no questions, I will go ahead. Okay, the next point is that we have to that we have, the next point are the recycling processes. Yes, normally the waste treatment is followed by different recycling processes. Most established so far is the mechanical recycling, mainly focused on polyolefins like PE, PP, or maybe PS. I think on the K we saw a lot of improvements of these established technologies, but as well as new approaches in the field of chemical recycling, or also a combination of different recycling methods, like a combination of physical and chemical treatment, and so on. And I think that with the improvement in the upstream process here, we will end up, or we will achieve, better input quality, which finally allow us individual and high efficient recycling processes. So I think here it's at the beginning. Yes, the technology is not new, but in the future we will also have to deal with other polymers, not only polyolefins. We have to improve the recycling quality. So far we are focused a little bit more on efficiency, on economic approaches, how to improve or increase the throughput and something like that. But I think here we are really at the beginning, and there is a lot of research and collaboration necessary to move forward. Do you see some future technologies when we talk about recycling, pyrolysis, or I don't know, dissolvable glues? Yeah, thank you. You are afraid for the examination.
If you promise me not to do very tough questions, okay?
Yeah.
I'm coming from Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the business of recycling process for 27 years. We have complete washing lines, okay? What you can see, and I'm traveling all over the world in terms of presenting this to outside Iberia, it's that many times not always is looked in terms of the optimization of the consumptions, okay? And in terms of recycling, what we do have developed is a process that has 75% of energy consumption in the drying process. We are replacing, by the end of the process of the washing lines, we are replacing that part. Instead of 2 centrifuges and 1 thermodryer, we are doing it mechanically. It looks like that you are going backwards, but it's not, because it's really guarantee that ideal moisture to the extruder, and this is one of the things that we are presenting here in the K show. Okay, so since you asked, this is a new technology. So I'm saying that we guarantee 5% humidity before the extruder maximum, the worst case scenario. Okay, just as just because you asked. And I am traveling for the last couple of years all around the world, and I don't see much more than what you just said in terms as option. And I would like to see more drying washing without water. Would be also, for me, as a trend, as a future, and I would like to see it also. And finally, I just wanted to say that I realized during this case show that there's a company that is doing something new, that it means that they are combining several equipments and put it together in containers and delivering to the small companies. I thought it was also a very nice business model. This is not, I think it's, I don't remember the name of the company, whatever, I think it's German. But it is interesting because they are now waiting, in my perspective, we really think need to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it will be the same all the time. So sorry for your time.
No. Thank you. Yes, I like this comment, or these comments, let me say, to improve in general the technology, the energy efficiency, to scale up and down, to make the processes more flexible. Yes, and once again, I think there are a lot of more pathways where we have to think about in the future, and it's just the beginning, but the commercial pressure and the change in awareness and the awareness of the public, but also politicians, researcher and industry, there is a complete change. So I think that's, but this will create a positive pressure to move forwards, because most of the ideas, especially the technical approaches, are not new. You just have to adapt them, to improve them, to develop them further, maybe to establish new collaborations, new partnerships, and so on. Okay, yeah, that brings me to the next step when we talk about recycling machines. I think these things are really very close together or connected. The development of mechanical recycling machines was focused more so far on economic efficiency, throughput, and all the things, and so far, for me, I must be careful, but I'm paid by the government, so I can say what I want. So far, the machinery that is used was, even if we talk about the established mechanical recycling, it was more a black box process. We don't know really what goes in, and then we removed some things. We remove odor, and we remove maybe, let me say, a dirty polymer that came out of a filtration system, and then there was something that came out of the machine. But if we don't know what is going in, what is going out, what is removed, what remains in the material, we can't say what is the quality of the material that comes out of the machine. And even if we have to guarantee that we as a recycler are responsible to deliver the same quality 2 weeks later or next year or something like that, and how can we document? There is no documentation or no chance to document the quality of the product, and so on. So I think we need more intelligent machines to get a better understanding of the mechanical recycling and to increase the quality. So what we need, from my point of view, is a lot of more analysis. We have to analyze the input stream. We have to analyze the color, the foreign polymers, the viscosity, the humidity, maybe there are some particles inside and so on, and we have to control all these things during a mechanical recycling. When you have a look to the injection molding machine, the machine knows everything, how much material is inside and what is the position of the screw and all the things. And the extrusion machines, they are, at the moment, they are completely stupid. There is just a rotation speed, or maybe we know what the dosage and so on, but we did not know or we do not know what goes on in the machine. So I think that is really an approach, and the good message, the good news is that there are a lot of machinery manufacturers are on the way. So that means that they work really hard to increase or introduce this analysis processes into their machinery. For example, it's really just an example. It's Krauss-Maffei. They introduced a color system where they were able to measure the color and also to adjust the color if it is not right. Or the Irema company, they started to analyze the input. There are really a lot of examples for that. Any other ideas? What should the producers of recycling machines, energy efficiency, resource efficiency, to end up in higher quality or high quality recyclates? I think these are the core messages for the future. Any other ideas? Okay, then let me go ahead. I think there are also steps or approaches necessary to characterize recyclates, to get a better characterization and also documentation. What we need is also the documentation of the history of the recyclate. So what was the first life? What is the chemical composition? Which recycling system and which recycling parameters were used? Otherwise, I don't know who will take the responsibility, let me say, to write a security data sheet if we don't know what is in the product. And I think the history of the recyclate has to be connected with the product. And what we will need also are more standards to describe recyclates. There are a few standards on the market now, but even those standards, there is, for example, there is no definition what is a recyclate. So it's a mixture of 10% virgin material with 90% recyclates. Is it okay, or do we need the 100%, or it's also okay to talk about recyclates if the amount of recyclated material is 10%? And when we talk about post-production recyclate, is it necessary that the material moves from one company to another one, or is also post-production recycling covers the recycling of their own waste, and so on? And we have really, believe me, there are just a few standards on the market, and even those standards, there are a lot of gaps. You find no information about chemical resistance, about let me say, parameters, characteristics that are necessary for simulation of injection molding processes. What is with chemical resistance, about Greek resistance, and all these things. There is nothing at the moment. And if the recyclates want to compete or have to compete with other materials, they must also deliver, or they must also offer the same technical information as available for virgin materials. So here is a lot of work to do. Okay. Remarks, comments, questions? Yeah, please.
About this question, who's working on this topic at the moment? And yes, is there like an association who is specifically working on characterization and new materials that are coming in, like cellulose polymer composites? For one example, I see quite a lot of development in these materials. We have the 1 to 6 polymer symbols. Is there coming some more after 6?
Okay, so far, I'm quite not sure if I got it right, but I will try to give you an answer. So far, we have just standards for polyolefins like PE and PP, PS, and PVC. PVC is it's focused on windows and something like that, and there are no standards so far for other polymers. And who works on this issue, or who is responsible for that? DIN, for example, started to think about these things. There are a lot of working groups on an EU level to set up new standards, but it's a long way. That means that we are not very close to the goal. It's more that we are on the starting position, that we are at the beginning. And yes, you are completely right. For other materials, so far as I know, it's just the starting first steps that that maybe are yes, behind us. So there are much more work. There is much more work to do than we did.
So, anyone else? No. Okay.
Okay.
So
then I will come to my last point. I summarized, or I bring these 2 points together. We have to talk about the supply chain for recyclates. For example, if you want to introduce new material into the market and you want to deliver it to the automotive industry, the first question is, can you guarantee that you will be able to deliver the material also next year? What will happen if you are not able to deliver the material next year? And do you have two competitors which could also give me an offer? So that's, for example, that I think that describes that we need stable, trustable, traceable supply chains for recyclates, and also we need an international approach, let me say, and so on. But in this context, it was for me very remarkable to see that machinery manufacturers are leaving their comfort zone. That means, for example, a company, just an example, a company like Krauss-Maffei, they set up a trading platform named Polymor, where suppliers and users of recyclates can match each other. It's not their core business. They spend a lot of money, believe me, to set up this trading platform. Or another example is Reifenhäuser developed an app for your mobile phone named CheckPass, which allows you to scan the code that is on each package, and this gives you an information about the recyclability of the package and also the recyclate content of this package. At the moment, this app covers about 35,000 packages. It's just the beginning, but what we can see here is that there are really also a lot of companies on the way, and that they start to think not just in their box. That's what you already mentioned before, that we have to open our minds and to think about upstream and downstream processes more and more. So, at the end, to summarize briefly and to give a short outlook, I think we saw that there are a lot of different approaches of all of the players of the value-added chain. I personally hope that we will be able to take the circular economy spirit and momentum, let me say, with us also behind the K. This is connected really with the wish that we will be able to really to open our minds to come to a fact-driven and not to an emotional-driven discussion on plastics in the future. It's wrong, let me say, if there is a negative statement on plastic, just to answer the future is impossible without plastic. We have to answer the future is impossible without plastic. That's what we believe, and what we recognize is that we did a perfect job within the last 100 years. But this was just focused on improvement of processing and utilization performance. And now what the industry recognizes is that we have to start or to think to rethink the processes, that we have to start to think about the recyclability, and that's the industry is also open for this issue, but we are really here on a starting point. So with this take-home message, if there are, maybe we can discuss. Otherwise, I wish you a very successful two very successful last days here at the K, and I hope that we will meet once again and can discuss about the circular economy in future. Thank you very much.